Hey guys, OG Albino here, bringing you guys our GG Inc. top 16 matchups against Swaggy Boy 06 right here. Definitely really excited about this one. I'm pretty happy with the fact that we've been able to get this far up to this point. And hopefully we can take it home and go all the way. If you guys do enjoy today's top 16 matchups, be sure to drop a like on the video as well. Subscribe to the channel. We're on our way to 5,000 subs by the end of the year, and I'd really appreciate if you help us out along that journey and reaching that goal. That being said, we can kind of jump right into it. So if you guys haven't seen the other GG Inc. videos in the past, go ahead and take a look. I need to make a playlist with like those specifically. I think I've just been putting them in the movies playlist. But essentially, it was a Swiss tournament. I believe it was 7 rounds of Swiss. We ended up placing in the top 64. I believe we were the 12th seed overall. Then we won in top 64. We won in top 32. And those are their own separate videos. And now we're playing in top 16 against Swaggy Boy. Now, this is the first time in brackets that we are not the higher seed. And the way this format works, because it is a multi-generational draft league tournament, the higher seed picks the first format. In this case, it was Swaggy Boy. He ended up picking Sword and Shield. And then the loser of the first game will pick the second format. And then if there is a game 3, it'll be whatever format is left over. Like I said, my opponent is the higher seed. I believe they're the 5th seed in the entire tournament. Having a really solid tournament, obviously. So they ended up picking first, and they picked Sword and Shield. You can see the matchup right above us in that top right. Very bulky squad. Now you'll notice it's kind of a trend with a lot of their builds. All 3 of their drafts, they're playing more bouncy, bouncy centered teams. Again, I'd like to reiterate, it's not like stall, which is fine either way. It's a very solid, annoying balance spell. It's not a pincer. I don't know what the fuck that guy does. But other than that, very solid team, very annoying team. With that being said, I do want to kind of jump in and take a look at our team a little bit right here. You can see first up we have Tapu Koko. Pretty simple set in the matchup like this. Revolt Switch, Nature's Madness, Taunt, and Dazzling Gleam. Really just kind of a stall breaking Koko. Pokemon like Ferrothorn and Blissey switching well to us, but I like the ability to Volt out on them. I know Volt's a little aggressive with something like Hippowdon there, but I really don't think Hippowdon is going to be an initial switch in very often to me, because it is something that is very paramount in checking Pokemon like Zygarde, checking Pokemon like Buzzwole, and even emergency checking something like Neolego, though there's plenty to do that. Spoilers, Neolego doesn't even come. But really, I think it is important in checking Zygarde and Buzzwole. Because of that, I don't think it's going to be as likely to want to hard switch in on us at the very least. So feel pretty comfortable throwing off Volt Switches, and I don't want to take Iron Barbs from U-turning. So if I'm predicting the Hippo to come in, I'm just going to have to Nature's Madness, or I'm going to have to double out. Taunt is great to stop recovery, stop hazards, stop status, all of that kind of stuff. Then we have a Lumberry, Kartana. We are actually rocking with a speed boosting set this week. We are Swords Dance, Leaf Blade, Sacred Sword, and Knockoff. Really, as long as we can eliminate the Zapdos, this gets up an SD and a speed boost, and the game could be over. We need to eliminate Zapdos, and we need to confirm if it's Scarf Lottie or not. If we could do those 2 things, or we just need to get a second speed boost. If we can do those 2 things, we can pretty much guarantee a Kartana win pretty darn well. And, you'll see the team is kind of centered around potentially pressuring that Zapdos and being a big nuisance to that thing. We also have Zygarde, who's really annoying in this matchup. We have a Leftovers Dragon Dance variant, pretty offensive, but we are 1,000 Arrows Dragon Dance, Toxic Protect. We can kind of just afford to go offensive, considering that the things that are going to kill me on this team, Latios and Weavile, are just going to kill me. Everything else I just naturally eat from. Toxic plus Protect is going to be nice for the likes of something like Hippowdon. If we could chip down the Ferrothorn well with something like Coco's too, there actually isn't a conventional ground resist on this team, so there is a good possibility for Zygarde to even pick up a win. We'd also have to, again, identify if it's Scarf Lottie or get rid of that Weavile, because obviously Ice Shard picking us off. I thought about Choice Band, but personally like this Toxic Protect set a little bit better. Next up, we have a Spadef Mesper. This is going to be our main switch into something like Latios. We are Psyshock, Stealth Rock, Knockoff, and Healing Wish. Pretty simple stuff. We actually pivot into a lot on this team. Throw off really annoying knockoffs, get rid of Leftovers and helmets and boots and things of the sort. Get up on rocks, and really also function as a nice Healing Wish pivot. Getting something like Kartana back up to full, getting something like Zygarde, and something that is going to be the last member on our team back up to full is really clutch for us in a lot of situations, allowing us to play a little bit more fast and loose with our offense and trying to break down this bulkier team. Then we have a Jellicent. Why do we have a Jellicent right here? Well, my idea is hopefully this Jellicent can trap something like a Toxapex really well. If Toxapex feels comfortable staying in, trying to get off a hit, or pivoting into us, and Ferrothorn not running risk room, whatever it may be, we can catch that thing with a Whirlpool, taunt it, Skull Burn it down, and just recover it forever. Hopefully 1v1. If we can eliminate Toxapex or keep it very low, What that does is it pretty much ensures that my opponent's only switch-in to Buzzwole is going to be Zapdos. If I can force that position and force a Stone Edge into Zapdos, that really opens up Kartana. That's kind of my very general rough idea in this. So we do obviously have a Scarf Buzzwole with Stone Edge to catch that Zapdos, but otherwise it's still a nice offensive check to Pokemon like Weavile, Pokemon like Non-Scarf Lottie, and Earthquake is going to hit Pokemon like Toxapex really, really hard. And honestly, once we remove that Zapdos and that Toxapex, Scarf CC endgame is also very, very possible and very, very likely to, work out for us. So, yeah, pretty solid team here right here. I think the game plan is decently sound at the very least. And with that being said, we can kind of jump into the battle itself. I don't know if I mentioned it, but Coco is going to be our lead of choice in this game, as we do see Toxapex. And this puts you in a tough spot, because something that I did fail to mention, obviously, or I guess I didn't fail to mention it. Something that I need to mention is we didn't bring Lego, which means T-Spike are really free against us. So that might be a lapse in team building in a sense of my team in particular does not like T-Spike up. Pokemon like Jellicent, Buzzwole, and Zygarde really do not function with it up, especially because I'm also not Defog on my Coco. So in my head, I really, really want to prevent this T-Spike, and my opponent is going to make the aggressive call, knowing that I can't really allow the T-Spike to go up and go for a really nice Sludge Bomb. Not getting the poison, but doing 65% to us on a non-Roost Coco, which is a little bit tough. Jellicent's going to pivot out here. Unfortunately, I am going to get poisoned immediately, and this is going to really hamper my plans. In my head, I'm like, okay, it's fine. It's better than getting Toxic, to be completely honest with you. And this is Gen 8, so I have 16 recovers. I should be able to 1v1 this thing pretty darn well. What I am going to do here is I'm going to go for a Scald. Maybe a little bit of an overplay. In my head, I'm like, okay, maybe they scout for some kind of Whirlpool. They go into Ferrothorn. I'd like to get a burn on that thing and at least force some kind of progress early, and maybe I can trap this thing later. Maybe they just don't think that I'm some kind of Whirlpool variant, as they do throw off a Scald. But the reason I stay in is because they can kind of just 1v1 me with Hex. So this Hex Spring ends up being a real big issue for our team in particular, because with this poison, we don't 1v1 this thing very well. I am going to recover up this next turn as the T-Spike goes up. So, I mean, this early game has kind of been worst case scenario. My Jellicent is poisoned, my Coco is at 35%, and the T-Spike is up anyways. So, really tough positioning for me. I could have taunted there. It might have been a little bit better. I am going to get a Whirlpool off this turn on the Toxapex, but Hex plus this poison is going to make it very difficult for me to wear this thing down in the manner that I want to, because I am going to have to taunt this turn. I do live poison after leftovers, which is really nice, but I'd be lying if I said we were very healthy at this point, right? We're kind of forced in a position to continuously recover forever and ever and ever. And we also have to get the taunt turn right when this taunt does end, so it doesn't just recover in my face and kind of undo all of the progress that we ended up, getting done. So right here, Whirlpool does end. I do make that taunt play because last time, or no, I don't this turn. I recover as they Hex up again here. And again, I'm pretty darn healthy. But last time, the last two times, I didn't make the taunt play when the taunt was ended, and it ended up biting me. So I'm like, okay, here, I'm going to taunt. I think they're going to try and recover up and keep this thing healthy. They unfortunately don't, and we are going to die to Toxic after the Hex Spring. So again, really good bring Hex-wise. I'm going to get into my Mesprit. I see this as an opportunity to get up my Stealth Rock. I need to start chipping this team down some way, shape, and form. Somehow, at the very least, as I do knock off this Hippowdon, get rid of its leftovers, which is obviously very nice. Unfortunately, Stealth Rock do just kind of go up at this point. I'm going to pivot on to Zygarde. Again, with the poison up, this is really tough for me. I really don't have much staying power on my Zygarde anymore. This Lefty's Protect just doesn't actually mean anything. So getting this Toxic off is nice, and you'll see I'm only taking 26 from Earthquake, which is completely fine. Again, especially if this wasn't Toxic last move on this Hippo, which I don't think it was. I mean, it could have been, to be honest, but regardless, getting the Toxic off in there and then protecting and DDing, I could have put myself in an okay spot. Plus, this Ferrothorn takes a good chunk from arrows, so it would have been pretty whittled throughout the course of the game. Buzzwole's going to come out, also get poison, also take rocks, and again, a pretty tough position, unfortunately. I am going to close combat and get pretty darn lucky and get a crit right here. I'm not sure if it O-coded me afterwards with like a Gyro Ball or anything of the sort. I don't think it did, but it would have put me incredibly low. As Latios is going to pivot out here, I do thankfully have a pivot into this with my Mesprit. As Psych does go off here, just 23. Next time I switch in, I'll proc my Citrus Berry, which is also really nice. I throw off a knockoff right here as the Hippowdon comes in. I could have predicted and gone for a Psychic, as the Sand actually ends up procking my Citrus Berry. But it doesn't end up mattering because it does take the poison chip on much stuff. It slacks off this turn as I pivot out into my Coco, and I see this as an opportunity to at least get a Nature's Madness off on this thing. And with the poison and 18% is taking next turn, no leftovers, I mean, we basically have killed the Hippo, which is pretty darn nice. I'm going to go into Buzzwole, trying to exert some kind of offensive pressure, as Toxapex is going to pivot out between rocks. The damage it's taken and sand, it is actually going to potentially be in range of a 2-hit KO from our Buzzwole's close combat right here. As the Hippo does come back out, again, we're very, very low at this point. We've taken a ton of damage to poison, a ton of damage to sand, rocks, all of this passive damage kind of racking up, which is kind of the goal with a team like this. So again, nothing wrong with it, as a Zapdos does come out here. Now, hopefully, if we dodge a Hurricane or my opponent roosts for some reason, we can potentially use this as an opportunity to get off a big Healing Wish into our Buzzwole right here, as Toxapex ends up pivoting out as I do Healing Wish. Now, hindsight, I think Knockoff was a better play there. Getting rid of whatever this thing's item was, and then threatening with a potential Psychic, as it, like, they pivoted out into Weavile or something of the sort, because I'm assuming that's what they were trying to do, as a Healing Wish then into Buzzwole, puts me in a much better position, whereas right now, I get into my Buzzwole on a Pokemon where I have, like, a pretty inopportune click. My only move that really kills that guy is Earthquake, which we do have a pretty comfortable switch in and Zapdos too. Hindsight, if I click that Stone Edge right there, we're in a position where we can potentially win the game if it is not Scarf Latios with our Speed Boost Kartana, because we do a ton of damage to that thing. It's not like it pivots in really well. We can kind of just keep spamming Stone Edge until we can find that Swords Dance opportunity, as we do die to Hurricane plus Poison right here, unfortunately. But it's just not in the cards there. I go into my Buzzwole right here, again, kind of telegraphing we might be a Choice Scarf variant. Maybe click an Earthquake aggressively with the play, but I don't think it even really matters at that point. Maybe hoping for a Stone Edge crit would have been the move, but not the end of the world. Kartana comes out right here on a Sludge Bomb, so that's great. Free switch in, which is nice. I am going to make a double into my Buzzwole, expecting that Zapdos to come back out. And the issue is this poison plus these rocks are really, really racking up, and the T-Spike going up is really kind of just the end of the game, unfortunately. There wasn't really much for me stopping. I do make an aggressive double again right here. Just trying to do something to get back in this game. If I get a free switch in, there's maybe a chance where I can get an SD, you know, dodge a Hurricane from Zapdos or a Heat Wave and break through that way and get a couple KOs. But they make a good mid-ground Ice Cream. They 2-hit KO me with that pretty comfortably. And I unfortunately am going to drop this one to Swaggy Boy, putting us down 0-1 in the series. Do Stone Edge, they pivot out, save diff, and smoked me 4-0, unfortunately, and that's just life. I think I played really bad around that Toxapex early game, and it just set me so far in the back foot the rest of the game. It didn't really matter what I did to try and get back into this one. So we are going to drop this one to Swaggy Boy. Hopefully we can pick up a dub in the next one. I really didn't like my Sword and Shield matchup. It was another matchup very similar to this, where there was a very balanced build, but I felt like my Sword and Shield team was even less equipped than this team to deal with something like that. So I ended up going with Ultra Sun and Ultra Moon for the next matchup, as I got to pick. And yeah, let's jump right into that. Alright, here we are, Ultra Sun and Ultra Moon. You can see the team my opponent is rocking with. I guess I totally forgot to add the picture of the matchup. Ready for some live editing, chat? Here we go, here we go. Bam! You can see the team above us. They're rocking out. They have Mega Scizor, Z Manaphy, Clefable, Z Dragonite, Jolteon, Hippowdon, again, big Hippowdon fan, Skuntank, and Azelf. I actually like this matchup quite a bit. Let's go ahead and jump into it so you can see what we brought and why we brought it. First up, you see we do have Torn T here. Pretty offensive variant. Flying resist on this squad is going to be Jolteon. We're pretty darn bulky, so we can take, like, you know, +2 hit Scizor hits pretty comfortably. I believe we'll have +2 Adamant from full. I think that's what I EV for. I'm not 100% sure. But really, outside of that Jolteon, which if it comes, it's a Jolteon, and if it doesn't, there is no real flying resist. So that makes Z Fly very, very free, as per usual. Ice Wind's going to allow me some speed control, especially as a way to hit that Dragonite as hard as possible and prevent it from beating up in my face. And then Heat Wave is something to just completely smoke through Scizor with. Then we have a Choice Scarf, Victini here. Once again, playing into Manaphy. I don't really have a lot of consistent counterplay to Revenge Tail Glow. So I really like Scarf as a, like, you know, Energy Ball, you know, way of breaking through that guy. We went special in this game because there is Pokemon that kept Hippowdon there. Obviously, we're a little bit weaker to Calm Mind Manaphy in that case, but hopefully we can not allow that thing to set up to +1,000,000 if it is like a bulkier Calm Mind variant. We have Blue Flare, U-Turn, Glaciate, and Energy Ball. Glaciate is a nice touch for Dragonite, again, if it is like a DD variant. And we have an AV Nidoking. Very interesting, but I actually really struggle with Jolteon a lot in the builder. I know I just shit on it like 30 seconds ago, but I was actually very worried about it as like a Torn pivot. And as a Pokemon, if it clicked that mid-ground HP Ice on my Nidoking, it kind of just 2-hit KO'd me if I wasn't like an AV variant. Plus, I kind of wanted 4 coverage moves anyways. So I wanted to be able to throw off as many attacks as humanly possible. We're still very offensive, and this Pokemon is very strong. It also soft checks Pokemon like Clefable very, very well. Could pivot on Clefable very comfortably. Speaking of AV, double AV this week, we are an AV Tangrowth here with Giga Drain, Sludge Bomb, Hidden Power, Fire, and Knockoff. Kind of walled by that Dragonite, but I feel like I have a few things for Dragonite, and hitting the Scizor was a little bit more important to me with Tangrowth, so I wasn't complete fodder for that. Whereas I have other Pokemon a little bit more well equipped for Dragonite. Sorry about that. Very tired. It's early morning when I'm recording this. Day of spoilers, but yeah, it's mainly checked to something like Manaphy, but it also soft checks Pokemon like Jolteon, soft checks Pokemon like Hippowdon, and even like these offensive Sludge Bombs are doing a ton of damage to Clefable. We are modest with a little bit of investment. Then we have a very physically defensive Blastoise. We are Scald, Ice Beam, Roar, and Rapid Spin. Want to keep rocks away on this team. Very, very much so into Pokemon like Victini and Tornadus. Roar is to prevent something like Manaphy or Clefable from setting up on me. I could Haze, but I'd rather just get them out completely, to be honest with you. And then we have Scald and Ice Beam just for good general coverage in the game. Scald baits burns at least into Manaphy while we are, you know, kind of walled by it. And then Ice Beam is something for something like Dragonite. Just to Oko, this is going to be one of our main Dragonite responses. And then we have our lead in Choice Specs Kyurem. This Pokemon does really well offensively. There's not that much that really threatens us on lead, outside of maybe like a potential Mickey Scarf Dragonite. But even then, they have to be aware of me potentially being Scarf Kyurem. There's actually not a good position for them on lead into Kyurem, outside of maybe Mega Scizor. But if Mega Scizor gets over aggressive and U-turns as I hit Specs Hidden Power Fire it, have fun switching into Ice Beam the rest of the game. So I think it's actually a pretty darn solid lead, and I'm pretty happy with this team actually. This is the team I felt the most comfortable with going into these 3 matchups against Swaggy Boy right here. So that being said, let's jump right into it. Like I said, I am going to lead Kyurem. We see a lead Dragonite. Again, this is perfect. I understand they can be Scarf and Okami with like Scarf Outrage, but I don't expect it. And again, they have to respect the fact that I might be a Choice Scarf variant. They are going to pivot into Clefable right here. Not wanting to use their Scizor. Show me it might be a little bit more offensive. This shows to be a max Spadef Clefable, but I don't know if you saw it. We have a decent amount of bulk in our Kyurem, which means we live any one hit from a lot of things, and especially Clefable. I feel pretty darn comfortable just going for Ice Beam nonstop. Being that this had to switch hard in on me, it's either going to have to continuously soft-boiled, it's either going to get crit or frozen eventually. I know that sounds a bit odd, like, is he playing for the freeze? No, I just know they have to continually soft blade, so there's no reason for me not to continue to spam Ice Beam the moment they attack me, the moment their Clefable dies, which is always a good thing. So I am just going to continue to Ice Beam. You see I'm doing 52, so a ton of damage. It's pretty much going to be impossible, or they're going to have to get very lucky to not get cheesed in some way, shape, and form as I continuously click this button. Now, obviously, as I click it a bunch of times, we might end up deciding, okay, let's save some PP on our Ice Beam so that we can click it later. But also, if this thing dies, it's not like I need Ice Beam. Everything else gets smoked by Dragon Move, right? Scizor already switches into both, but everything else, have fun to Specs Draco. We are going to eventually get this freeze here, I think, on the 4th or 5th Ice Beam. So obviously pretty fortunate on my end to get it that early, but like I said, I was very comfortable spamming Ice Beam because it really opens up Dragon Move. Draco is a certified KO the rest of the game otherwise. We do click Ice Beam, do 41 to Scizor, showing it's pretty darn offensive. As my Tornadus is always going to be my pivot into this because I live a +2 Adamant Bullet Punch. We are going to take a little bit of damage there as they U-turn out into the Hippowdon, which shows to be Sand Force. I mean, they really don't want to have their team take any chip. Probably in particular that Dragonite is a different, it's a pretty interesting combo to have Sand plus D-Knight, so makes sense that they're actually going to be a Sand Force variant. I'm going to get into my Blastoise here as they Stone Edge. It does miss, which is unfortunate for my opponent. Chip is chip. It's always going to be nice. Wasn't doing a lot because I'm very physically defensive. I went into Blastoise to always spin away rocks as I don't want those up. Out comes the Clefable next. It's fine that it's going to bait this Scald. It does thaw it, but after leftovers, there's nothing on my team that doesn't kill Clefable, and it's all faster than it, so I'm not too worried about it. We're going to Scald again, trying to get a burn on this Manaphy. It is trying to set up in my face as I do Roar out, and just show to be Tail Glow, so that is good information to have. As Azelf comes in, clicks Psychic, and only does 31. That's not a lot of damage. I click Scald, I do less damage. That's Assault Vest Azov. I'm not sure how bulky, but guaranteed Assault Vest Azov, which is absolutely flabbergasting. They do click knock off this next turn, trying to get rid of an item. I U-turn out here and pivot into Victini as I'm trying to bait, like, you know, Psychic Move, etc., something like that, as they actually end up booming and catching my Victini, which is a bit unfortunate, but not the end of the world. D-Knight's going to come out. It is going to show E-Speed. Maybe pivoting the Blastoise is a little bit better there, but regardless of that, this is going to allow me to get into my Kyurem and click Specs Ice Beam very, very freely. Clefable does come out. We pick a KO, so we're up 4-5 at this point in the game. Next up is Manaphy. I am going to pivot out into my Tangrowth, as I believe we do see a Tail Glow pop. As Z Tail Glow is going to pop, or Z Ice is going to pop, and Sub-Zero Slammer is going to kill me, and I'm wondering if that was actually Blizzard. I'm not 100% sure. We're going to U-turn out on this Manaphy, and I want to kind of explain the U-turn play. This is a bit dumb. That showed me that was pretty offensive, and the assumption when you're seeing Tail Glow is that it's going to be fast, right? But the set in the calc was a very, very bulky Manaphy Tail Glow set. It was like max HP, and I didn't realize until after I U-turned. Max HP told me that I needed to U-turn into Z-Fly in order to kill, whereas, what do you call it? Showed me that I needed to, oh my gosh, why am I blanking? If it was just like no bulk, I could always just Z-Fly and kill it from there because I am pretty offensive. So I kind of calc that it's max HP, which it isn't. The Ice Beam for not a lot of damage. And again, right here, I think is a big misplaying. You'll see how this comes up and, you know, makes this endgame a little bit tougher. Right here, Grass Knot has to happen. They know I'm Roar. I roar them out if they try and set up again in my face, or if they Ice Beam, or whatever it is. But I was really worried about losing Torn. If I lose Torn, I lose the game to this Manaphy. It's faster than every Pokemon on my team. My Kyurem could probably live one, but Kyurem takes a hit, it's in range of E-Speed, it's in range of Bullet Punch, the game's over. Whereas if I can kill this thing, there's a potential for Kyurem to win the game. So I do end up staying in and sacking off my Blastoise to a Grass Knot / Energy Ball. Either one was fine. My Torn ate either of those up. I go into this now, and I force it out with a Z, or I go for a U-turn right there. Wow, I'm a demon. In my head, I thought that, yeah, see, maybe I was still calculating max HP. Regardless, I think I should have always gone Torn on that grass move. Losing the sack is very, very tough for me and very detrimental potentially. Out comes Nidoking. I'm going to click Ice Beam right here on the Manaphy coming hard out. I pivot out into my Tornadus immediately as Ice Beam does pop, so it wasn't Blizzard. It does a ton of damage. I do Z-Fly this turn, knowing it's pretty much a guaranteed KO on something. We pick off the Manaphy. The only issue is D-Knight comes out, and I do die to Choice Band at this point. However, I do see that my Kyurem lives one hit from full. This is fine, but if I had my Blastoise sack, I could sack Blastoise, get a free switch into Kyurem, and get a guaranteed KO while forcing in one of these other priority guys to get a KO on as well. If it's Scizor, I can potentially go Nido, or I can potentially go Tornadus, or I could probably go Nidoking, sack it, and then go into Tornadus, force some pressure that way. There's a lot more that I could potentially do right here. I am going to take this E-Speed pretty well. I do force a ton of damage onto this Scizor, do 37 right here, and now it's just a matter of, do I have enough pieces to win this game? Unfortunately, I don't think I have the sacks. And again, maybe I have Blastoise right here. I can go into Blastoise right here, throw off a very free Scald, and do a ton of damage into something, or maybe even an Ice Beam aggressively catching the D-Knight, or burn the D-Knight with a Scald. Now I'm in a position where there's no reason for my opponent to ever roost, because Bullet Punch, because it is offensive, is going to 2-hit KO Nidoking, it is going to 2-hit KO my Torn from here, and it does kill my Kyurem from here as well. I do kind of stay in, hoping they're not max attack. I know in my head that they are, but I think at this point, it is kind of just checkmate. I am going to go into my Tornadus here, because what I can do is I can throw off a Heat Wave, try and kill this thing that way. I do miss my Heat Wave, and that secures the game, unfortunately. Now, I remember I was pretty annoyed after this. I think if I hit that, I have outs with hacks, right? In the sense of, D-Knight can come in, I can sack off Torn to the E-Speed, I click Ice Beam, I pick a KO. I think there's a chance for crit, depending on the Hippo spread. Maybe crit Ice Beam can kill. Obviously, I can't freeze. If it can't, then it didn't matter regardless, no matter what. But at this point, Adamant Bullet punches a ton. Adamant E-Speed with the Choice Band is going to do even more. And we're going to go down. We're going to drop 2 straight and get knocked out in top 6 seed, which is unfortunate. I was definitely pretty upset. I don't know if disappointed is the right word, but I was definitely pretty bummed out that I wasn't able to, you know, take home the dub and move on to top 8 in quarterfinals and things of the sorts. But that's life. I'm pretty happy with this tournament in general. I mean, I played a ton of games, and I only lost 3, so I'm not too upset with that. I think 9-3 overall, considering Swiss and all that stuff. My teams were all a lot of fun. I got a chance to play Gen 7 and Gen 8 again, which are 2 of my favorite generations. Draft League-wise, probably my 2 favorite generations. And yeah, we just were unfortunately kind of outplayed in both those games. I think the Swiss game, I really shot myself in the foot. And this one, I think just that Blastoise not kind of preserving my my assets as well as I could kind of put me in a tough position to potentially win. I just didn't have enough pieces. I didn't have enough sack pieces, so GG to my opponent. Hopefully they do well in the tournament. I'd like to lose to the guy who wins, you know, because then it gives me a little bit of an ego boost, right? It basically means I'm in second place, right? But yeah, again, thank you guys so much for watching. If you enjoyed this GG Inc. tour run through, you know, brackets or through Swiss, or and you haven't watched those, go watch them. But drop a like on the video, sub if you know. I'll see you guys next time. Later.